Alright, welcome to Airsoft Answers. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode from the guys over at Airsoft Riot channel. Click the annotation and go subscribe to their channel and see all the great videos they do. But they did a real great episode. It's a very tight schedule to film this show on, so I appreciate those guys taking the show last week for me. Alright, so the first thing we're going to address here on this episode is a very common question I get on airsoftanswers.com as well as on my YouTube channel, and that's the new player who buys a gun and says, what do I need to upgrade? And I really hate to see new players caught up in this whole upgrade, because the entire Airsoft community is all upgrade happy. And yes, you can put upgrades into your gun that will definitely increase the performance, obviously, but for the new players, you don't need to upgrade anything, okay? I hate to see, because most of them, when they come over to airsoftanswers.com, like we had one the other day, guys like, I just bought a KWA SR12, what do I upgrade? You don't upgrade anything, it's a KWA. So that's an example of somebody that's caught in the upgrade, all the hoopla of upgrading. I gotta upgrade, I gotta have an upgrade, I gotta go to the field, I gotta talk about my upgrades. You don't, okay? Every gun I have is bone-ass stock. Every single one, with the exception of the barrel. I never upgrade anything. The people that upgrade their guns, and I think Airsoft Riot talked about this last week as well, the guys that you see that are upgrade happy are the people you see with broken guns every week. Mine run smooth because they all factory perfect. So, for the new player, if you really want to upgrade your gun, buy a tight bore barrel. With the exception of, like, KWA puts a 6.05 millimeter ID barrel in their gun, so there might not be a whole lot of need for that. But if you want to upgrade something, buy a tight bore barrel. Buy a Mad Bull Black Python version 2 tight bore barrel, and always, of course, get a bucking, because there's the chance when you go ahead and change out that barrel that you'll damage the bucking. So you buy a bucking, you buy a barrel, that's your first upgrade, that's all you need. The other thing, because another thing that kind of brought this topic up was, I saw somebody that's like, I just bought a combat machine, I need to buy this bore-up kit. And I was like, you obviously don't even know what a bore-up kit is, because you don't need one for a combat machine. A bore-up kit's for when you're going to increase the length of your barrel by some insane amount, and you just need more air volume to compensate for that longer barrel. So, but that's kind of another thing that spurred this, was that guy's like, I need a bore-up kit. No, you don't. You don't even know what it is. So don't buy it. But for the average player, buy a tight bore barrel and be happy with it. You don't need a torque up motor. You don't need a high speed motor. You don't need torque up gears, high speed gears. You don't need Prometheus everything. You don't need any of that. Just buy a tight bore barrel. Make sure you got a decent battery. Go to a game. Have fun. It's that simple. All right, let's get on to the viewer submitted questions. Once again, they were kind of a train wreck. You know, we got a lot of just stupid questions, which I'm not going to go over. But let's see if we can knock these out real quick. Espis14 out of Norway, he's been on the show before. He says, what do you do if your gas blowback mag is leaking? I got mine, it's leaking a tiny bit and it's annoying. You change the seals. It's not that hard. I actually, I had a KWA magazine that kept leaking around the base plate seal, and I finally just epoxied that thing because I was tired of the seal. Some of the older KWA seals are they're rectangle shaped. They really suck. So I put the seal in, and then I epoxied around the damn thing, and that was the end of that. Dr. Pepper Studios, is a tracer unit worth it, or is it a rip? If you play in night games in CQB, tracer units are great. Go over to Milsim Junkies channel. They play at CQB City in California, and you can see even, you know, in there with all the lights on, the tracer units look really cool. So in my opinion, tracer units they're worth it. Just watch the barrel extension one, like the amp tracer unit that screws on the end of the barrel. They had a lot of problems with the tube being in there a little out of alignment, and you'll crack that tube. My preference for a tracer unit is the Mad Bull Ultimate hop-up chamber. It has the LED tracer right on the side. It's a great unit. I have one in my L85, and it's definitely worth it. Just watch the barrel extension ones, because a lot of those do suck, like the amp. Do not buy the amp one. Let's see. Love Metal 629. What would you recommend for aftermarket optics iron sights? Would you prefer a red dot sight, a scope, iron sights? Please give me brand names. And no, I'm not going to give you all the brand names and tell you what to buy. I hate holding people's hand and telling them what to buy. I prefer iron sights or a 3-power scope, because I like it. Just it's a little easier to find people off in the distance. I don't like red dots. Most of them you cannot see out in the bright sun with them. So if you're going to go something like that, I'd go a holographic reflex sight. But I prefer these good old iron sights or a 3-power scope, and I just use the scope for finding people. Desert Solo 2 says, what's the angle of engagement? And the angle of engagement is kind of a tricky thing. Definitely not recommended for people who are just starting to work on the gearboxes. But basically the angle of engagement is when your piston goes all the way forward, it's up against the piston head. So what you do is try to, and there's a bumper in there usually on the end of the piston head. What you try to do is find the right thickness bumper, so when the gear comes around and engages the piston, the two teeth are hitting flat. The teeth on the piston and then the teeth on the gear, when they come around, they hit as flat as they can. So if you kind of visualize it, like if your bumper was way too long, you'd see the angle on the teeth of the piston here, but when it actually engages the gear might be catching it on more towards the top rather than coming flat surface to flat surface. So that's my best explanation of angle engagement. I think it's a little ridiculous to try to adjust that. I was messing around with it the other day, and the way the stock guns are set up, it's pretty close. You're only talking, just a very minute amount. So angle engagement, that's what it is. Just trying to get the gear teeth to match up to the teeth on the piston as flat as possible. Hazmat Jeff 15 out of Maine. He says, I know you said that neither FPS nor rate of fire is real important to you, but which do you see being a higher importance when it comes down to it? And if it comes down to it, FPS, because rate of fire, it's ridiculous. Like I've said before, why have an M4 that shoots 3 times as fast as what a real steel M4 would shoot in rate of fire? I thought these were supposed to be replicas of the real thing to be realistic, and you don't see M4s that shoot 40 rounds a second. So if it comes down to it, FPS over rate of fire any day. Mr. Harrington 1 asks, what kind of gear would you say is good for someone just starting out? Tactical vests, goggles, full face masks, so on and so forth. If you're just starting out and you want to, and you haven't played yet, we'll just consider it you haven't been to a game yet. I do like I do, and I went to a surplus store and I bought a surplus vest. It was like $15. I got some camo that was used camo. I paid like $5 for it. So just start off, if you have a surplus store in your town, which most towns have a little Army Navy store or something, go there, check it out, get something cheap. And then as far as goggles or full face masks, personally, I wear a full face mask. That's up to you, but don't skimp on the goggles. If you're looking at $10 goggles, you're looking at the wrong thing. It's your eyesight. You only get one chance with it, so buy something good. Don't skimp on goggles. Let's see. Hey, the guys from RK Airsoft. You guys have seen these guys on my channel as well as in the review project. And they write in and says, at what FPS should you stop using 2.0-gram BBs and start using 2.5s? And what brand of BBs would you recommend for the average player? Which is a great question. I think any modern metal gear gun, such as a JG and up, AGM, whatever, you should at least use 2.5s. Anything over 300 FPS, in my opinion. 2.0s are they're just for people who are cheap. They want the cheapest BB that they can get. So I think you should use the heaviest BB you can. 2.5s in any gun that's shooting, 300 and over. And I know I'll get a lot of flack for this, but basically if your BB's too heavy, you'll see it floating. By the time it gets to the 100-foot mark, the guys are watching it float by. And your BBs are way, way too heavy. But anything over 300. And then what brand? I like TSD. And also one of the brands that a lot of people are just kind of finding out are really good are the King Arms Platinum. I think the King Arms Platinum is probably the best BB on the market in that price range. You know, of course, we all know BioVal makes the best BB on the market, but King Arm Platinums are awesome. If not, TSD. And I've been using a lot of the ICS BBs, and they're not bad either. Airsoft Review Man, what is the point of low capacity magazines? I know this was touched on in the first episode, but really, come on, they're useless unless you're firing semi-automatic. Low cap magazines are for realism. Again, we talked about the rate of fire on these guns, but you know, it's all about a replica of the real thing. So low capacity mags are fun. It's easy to go out to a game with a 450 round high cap and just blast all day. But if you're using a 30 round magazine, take some skills, baby. Ginger Ninja Creations. That's a mouthful. It says, what do I do if my airsoft gun is shooting 2-round bursts on semi-automatic firing mode? That's one thing. 2-round bursts, actually not too bad, but it's probably in your contacts. They're getting a little sticky. There's also in the selector plate, there's a little spring that moves it forwards, and sometimes that spring gets a little weak. Sometimes it's missing. Usually if it's missing, you're just blasting like full auto or lotto rounds. In your case, it's probably just getting a little sticky in there. Might be getting a little carbon buildup from the electricity in the contacts. But you got to take it apart and check your selector switch or your selector plate and make sure everything in there is correct. The Happy Joy 2011 says, what's the cheapest airsoft gun that has high FPS and it lasts a while? You can't really answer that, dude. And high FPS, don't worry about it. You're obviously a new player. Thorpe Dex. I have an Echo 1 Wolverine. I was wondering if the battery naturally is supposed to rub against the metal internals. It's a blowback AEG. And no, it's not. And that's one of the problems of the blowback AEGs that take a stick battery, is you're going to get that dust cover rubbing against your battery. So, for those, obviously, you know, you want to push it up inside the stock as much as you can. But if I owned a blowback AK where the cover was rubbing the battery, I definitely fixed my battery before I started playing, like a little tape, a little tie wrap, something to hold it away from that, because you don't want it rubbing through the plastic casing on the battery. And then is this last? Yeah, this is the last one here. WCW 2793 out of Alabama says, I'm looking to upgrade the handguard on my Echo 1 M4 in order to eliminate the barrel wobble. Which handguard should I get? And this is kind of a double-edged question, double-edged sword. The handguard doesn't really affect the barrel wobble a lot. It helps, okay? And I know people are going to be sending all kinds of comments. You don't know what you're talking about. The handguard does. The handguard does affect the barrel wobble a little bit, but it's not going to eliminate it. Basically, this is an ICS barrel here, and these are a little different, but this is a two-piece barrel. So right here in the middle is where the thing screws apart, and you can see there's a couple set screws. So if you have a two-piece barrel, that's one thing you want to check to see whether these set screws are still tight, because you can get barrel wobble. As I loosen that up, you get barrel wobble in there. And then if it's totally not happening, if the set screw's tight, you may also try to just shim it a little bit. Like this one, I could actually wrap something around this, and when I screw it in, it tighten it up inside this piece. But make sure if you do have a two-piece barrel that is tight. The other thing is, behind your delta ring, right here, there's a thing called barrel shims, and a lot of guns don't have them. And I don't have one here to show you, but it's just a little thin piece of metal that goes on here. So when you tighten the delta ring down, it gets the the most pressure it can in holding your barrel into your upper receiver. So if you get a lot of barrel wobble, especially with the cheaper clone guns, you're talking an Echo 1. Echo 1 doesn't put a lot of shims in there to tighten down on. And like I said, you can get them at airsoft stores, but that's kind of a little ridiculous. You can probably make one. just anything in there will go completely around. So when you tighten the delta ring down, it gets a bite on the entire barrel and pulls it as tight as it can to the upper receiver. But like I said, if you're getting barrel wobble, check if you got a 2-piece with a set screw, and then also if you can get a shim in there under the delta ring to tighten it down. That's how you're going to eliminate most of your barrel wobble, not the handguard. And then of course your front sight. If your front sight, depending on how it's mounted, again, it might not be pulled against the handguard all the way. So check to see what style of front sight you have and how it is mounted on there. A lot of them have slots cut in it, so you can't really adjust it back and forth. But some of them are just set screwed on there, so you can actually put your handguard in and then pull this down as tight as you can against it to eliminate barrel wobble that way. But don't look for a handguard to fix barrel wobble problems. Shim it under the delta ring, and also make sure you don't have a 2-piece barrel setup. So anyways, that's Airsoft Answers for this week. Don't forget, airsoftanswers.com. Go over there if you have something you got to get answered quickly, and we'll see you next Friday.